I'll stand up and worship a little bit. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Be all else not to me, save that thou art. Be thou my best thought in day and night. Both waking and sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, be thou my true word. Be thou ever with me, and I with thee, Lord. Be thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Be thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. As riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Be thou my inheritance now and always. Be thou and thou only the first in my heart. Sovereign of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, thou heaven's bright sun. Oh, grant these joys after victories won. Great heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be thou my vision, O ruler of all. And he is just for me. Love's like a hurricane, I am a tree, bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden, I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory. And I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory. And I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. We are his portion and he is on the rise. Drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. Grace is an ocean where all sinking. So heaven meets earth like an unforeseen kiss. And my heart surges violently inside of my chest. I don't have the time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way that he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Take a moment and say hi to people next to you. Sure.
Good evening. Hi. How are you guys?
Well, this evening we're going to be finishing up our study of 1st and 2nd Corinthians. So this scripture reading comes from 2 Corinthians 8, verses 13 through 15. Our desire is not that others might be relieved while you are hard-pressed, but that there might be equality. At the present time, your plenty will supply what they need, so that in turn their plenty will supply what you need. The goal is equality. As it is written, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Word of the Lord. Well, it's good to be with you again this evening. Had an interesting experience. Many of you know that I was at City Church in Minneapolis today talking about Community Church Richfield, and I got to talk about our vision for this thing, wanting to be people in ongoing pursuit of Jesus together, and wanting to be a church that is in, with, of, and for this community. And then I had to like stop it at that. So unless people came and talked afterwards, I had 5 minutes to talk extensively about what we were doing. So it's nice for me to be able to stand up here this evening and do announcements and talk about some of those things and the implications. Because in some ways it can seem like it's just jargon, it's just theory, it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really impact much. But especially when it comes to those 4 things that we want to be about, it impacts pretty much everything we do. So we've got a few different things going on. One of the things we're doing this summer is we've kind of spun off our small groups into activity groups and prayer groups. Activity groups meeting on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of every month, and the second Tuesday of every month, Wednesday of every month. Second Wednesday of every month is prayer group, where we pray for each other, for our community, and for our church. Last weekend we just had our other active group, or last week we did yard games, and not this coming Tuesday, but the next Tuesday. The plan is to be here 7 o'clock Tuesday night to do a movie, and we decided a movie yet? Sandlot. Sandlot, it is. Perfect summer movie, awesome. So Tuesday here, 7 o'clock, hour and a half movie probably. It'll be fun. The other thing that we have going on this week, this Saturday, is Richfield's big community event is around 4th of July. So this year, the second year in a row, they have a family night, and we are having a booth or a whatever activity set up there. We're going to be doing Olympic-themed activities, and then in conjunction with that, we're going to be selling our Love Where You Live t-shirts. We had the red ones before. Some of you have them, some of you have seen them, and we're selling 2 other ones now. And I have pictures of what they will look like. So we have a black one, which looks very much like the red one. It says Love Where You Live. And then it has our logo with a bunch of different things that people have said they love about Richfield. And then we also have kids ones that say locally grown on them, and then have the same kind of deal. And the goal of that is not just to sell t-shirts for us to make money or sell t-shirts just for us to say this is what we love about Richfield. The profit from all of these things go towards an organization or cause in our community, so that we're actually selling these things and loving on people in our community. So these are going to be going, the profits for all of these are going to be going towards Richfield Dual Language School to cover backpacks that go home over the weekend to help kids who have food insecurity. They currently have 40 backpacks paid for. They need another 40, which during the school year when they started the program, it doubled from 1 week to the next when they started the program, which meant that those families that had them suddenly had to go every other week. So they suddenly got used to a reliable source for their food, and then the next week, not so reliable. So we are, one, trying to raise recognition about the cause, and then also trying to contribute to it. I'm planning on buying another one. If you already have one, you don't have to buy another one, but they're going to be online this week, so if you even want to share them on Facebook, that would be great to get the word out about what we're going to be doing and what this is going to be going towards. So I think that's it. If you have any other questions about anything, you can probably find it out on our website, ccrichfield.org, or on Facebook. Pretty good sources. And now I get to invite Joy to come up.
Hi. Hi. So like Jeremy said, we're going to be wrapping up our time in Corinthians tonight. And we watched Paul be like pretty intense with the Corinthians, yelling at them, telling them to stop being jerks, and helping them to like be loving to each other and to other Christians. So tonight is going to be kind of a continuation of that, and we're going to be looking at chapter 8, which Paul is just kind of talking about generosity when it comes to money and kind of how that can look. And I think that's really helpful for us to be thinking about, and for me to talk to you about. Since we're kind of in this weird like larva stage of our development. We're not full blown yet. We're still kind of developing who we are and what we want to be here. And generosity is going to be a big part of that, not only because I feel like it comes up in every conversation we have about what we want to do, but also because when you're planting yourself in a new situation, in a new area, it's not just how we extend generosity, but learning how to receive generosity from the resources that are already here. So that said, because we all come into this room with different ideas around generosity, because I was thinking about this and I was like, I don't know how to do like a new thing. Like there's no like new way to talk about money and generosity. Like if there is one sermon that's preached over and over, like it is this one. But because of that, we all have different ideas when we come into this room about what generosity is about and what it means and how Jesus feels about it. So some of the filters that I think about this through have to do with a lot of my study that I did in seminary. And also just being broke through most of seminary and school. So my last year of seminary, I studied this thing called womanism, which was kind of the African-American response to white feminism. So in the 60s, white feminism was like, we shouldn't have to be at home all the time. Like, I want to go out and have a job. I want to be a full member of society. And so Black women were taking care of their kids at their homes while they were out having lives. And so a couple decades later, Black women started to have this conversation of saying like, hey, remember how you were liberated and that meant that we weren't? We'd like to discuss that with you. And so they started this conversation and it kind of got termed womanism. And they looked at the ways in which class, race, and gender affect how you experience society. And it also looked at a lot of the ways in which white assumptions are sometimes really detrimental to especially Black churches. And this shows up for me in generosity because I feel like a lot of times where I end up hearing about it is from moneyed suburban mega churches wanting to help out impoverished, inner city churches of color. Because mega churches tend to generally be white. Not completely, but that's kind of like leadership structure and all that kind of thing. And so at least in Minnesota, that's the case. And so a lot of times how generosity ends up playing out is like money being pumped into, an inner city church, which is helpful, great. But there's kind of no mutuality there. Or it's like, a white youth group going to like an impoverished inner city church and like, doing the Lord's work for a week and having their eyes opened, but not necessarily creating, again, any of that mutuality. So those are a couple caveats, so you know where I'm sitting while I'm talking about this. So let's take a look at 1 Corinthians 8. And I'm going to be using the Message tonight, which I know is like a little weird for some people, but I find it really helpful, especially reading Paul's letters, because he's really confusing sometimes. He uses a lot of run-on sentences. So having a pastor's paraphrase of what he's trying to get at, I find really helpful. All right, starting in verse 1. Now, friends, I want to report on the surprising and generous ways in which God is working in the churches in Macedonia province. Fierce troubles came down on the people of those churches, pushing them to the very limit. The trial exposed their true colors. They were incredibly happy, though desperately poor. The pressure triggered something totally unexpected, an outpouring of pure and generous gifts. I was there and saw it for myself. They gave offerings of whatever they could, far more than they could afford, pleading for the privilege of helping out in the relief of poor Christians. This was totally spontaneous, entirely their own idea, and caught us completely off guard. What explains it was that they had first given themselves unreservedly to God and to us. The other giving simply flowed out of the purposes of God working in their lives. That's what prompted us to ask Titus to bring the relief offering to your attention, so that what was so well begun could be finished up. You do so well in so many things. You trust God, you're articulate, you're insightful, you're passionate, you love us. Now do your best in this too. I'm not trying to order you around against your will, but by bringing in the Macedonians' enthusiasm as a stimulus to your love, I am hoping to bring the best out of you. You are familiar with the generosity of our Master Jesus Christ. Rich as he was, he gave it all away for us. In one stroke, he became poor, and we became rich. So here's what I think. The best thing you can do right now is to finish what you started last year and not let those good intentions grow stale. Your heart's been in the right place all along. You've got what it takes to finish it up, so go to it. Once the commitment is clear, you do what you can, not what you can't. The heart regulates the hands. This isn't so others can take it easy while you sweat it out. No, you're shoulder to shoulder with them all the way. Your surplus matching their deficit, their surplus matching your deficit. In the end, you come out even, as it is written, nothing left over to the one of the most, nothing lacking to the one of the least. So, kind of shelving those associations with generosity for a minute. What's going on in this passage is Paul's been trying to get together a gift for the Christians in Jerusalem. And my personal surmise is that this was about more than money for Paul. Because he's been going around to these Gentile churches trying to make arguments that the Gentile Christians are just as bought into this new kingdom as the Jewish Christians are. And the Jewish Christians probably were not having an easy time of it. I mean, all the Christians are having to deal with, being in a Roman place and not practicing the Roman religion. But the Jews or the Christians in Jerusalem are also having to deal with the Jews, who are still pretty angry about the fact that they keep arguing that the Messiah came and it was Jesus. And they've been trying to stamp this out for a few decades now. So they're having a rough time, and I can imagine that Paul wanted to, send them a gift, not just to alleviate the pressure that they were feeling, but also to be like, we're in this together. We're here to help you out. We want to make sure you guys have what you need. We want to make sure you're taken care of. So he's been going around to the churches, and so far it sounds like the Macedonians are the only ones that are really excited about it. And so Paul brings it to the Corinthians. And we've been talking about gifts with the Corinthians for weeks now. When we started talking about gifts, it was very much around Paul being like, stop talking about how gifted you are. Like, you're not as impressive as you think you are. Because they were just so excited that they were so gifted, and they just wanted to talk about their giftedness and just luxuriate in their giftedness. And in 1 Corinthians, Paul is just pretty emphatic that your giftedness doesn't matter if you don't then use that to serve somebody else. This is the whole process of being in the kingdom and being in church together. You are gifted in order to share a gift. And so Paul is now offering them an incredibly tangible way to share that giftedness. And just like in English, that word has the same kind of semantic range of a gift as talent and a gift as a present. And so in this passage, we can see that kind of being played with. I don't know if Paul did that on purpose, but I'm going to pretend he did because I think it's better poetry that way. But of saying okay, we keep talking about gifts, and you guys are doing a lot better. You've made a lot of strides since that first letter, second letter. Sorry, I usually go with the 1st and 2nd Corinthians because it's easier for me instead of talking about ABCD and all those extra ones. But so we see in the book of 1 Corinthians that they've made strides since then. This second letter, the second book, it's obvious the way that Paul is talking that they're doing much better at sharing their gifts and being a body. And now Paul is wanting them to take it a little bit outside of that and to share it with other Christians, because by them giving a gift, they're not just connecting themselves with Macedonia, who's going through hardships but want to give anyways. They're also going to be connecting themselves with Jerusalem. And so, yeah, it's a way of tying the cities together and making the body more than just this one city. So going back to those ideas about generosity, another thing that really affects how I think of generosity is the fact that I was on food stamps for a while, and I was on medical assistance for a while, and that was state generosity, which I really appreciated. And so it affects how I understand conversations about generosity, because I feel sometimes, so we hear political discussions about redistribution or welfare or whatever. And a lot of times the concern is that it's enabling people to just stay poor. And that's not a new concern. I mean, Paul is addressing that concern with the Corinthians. He's like, I'm not saying you should give so they can just live off the fat of your, work. I'm saying it because you have a surplus and they have a deficit. And so I think that that's something else that we can keep in mind as we're fleshing out how we want to be generous. that our goal, and I haven't heard this articulated as we've had these discussions, but our goal is not necessarily to enable people who are struggling, but to help them as they're struggling. And to that point, I actually really like how Paul says it or how it's translated in the NIV. So going to verse 13. Our desire is not that others might be relieved when you are hard pressed, but that there might be equality. At the present time, your plenty will supply what they need, so that in turn their plenty will supply what you need. The goal is equality. As it is written, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. So as we're looking at the idea of having equality inside of generosity, I think it's helpful to go into what Paul quotes. He's talking about, well, he's quoting Exodus when the Israelites were in the wilderness and they were all sad and hungry, and they're like, God, we're hungry. And he's like, okay, here's some manna. And so they had to go out every day and collect this manna, which who knows what that is, but it was edible and they got it. And it kept them alive while they were in the wilderness. And so every day they'd go out, well, 6 days a week they would go out and gather, and on the sixth day they'd gather extra for the seventh day so that they didn't have to collect on the Sabbath. And everybody ended up with like the same amount no matter how much they gathered. So like, that's the quote. Like, even the one who gathered too much had enough. The one who gathered too little had enough. And for me, that's a helpful construct because I think sometimes with money, we regard it as our own. Like, I worked for this, I earned this, the paycheck is in my name, it's in my account. But the reality of it is, manna comes to us all. And the idea is not that we can shore up enough manna to like have a surplus and have more than we need. Because when they did do that, it just went sour. Like they couldn't eat it. And it wouldn't carry over to the next day. So the connection for me there is like if the idea is that we all get our resources from God ultimately, it makes it a little freer to be generous with our surpluses. Because we see two different ways of being generous in Corinthians. We see the sacrificial generosity of the Macedonians, and we see kind of like the luxury generosity, I'm going to call it, of the Corinthians. Because I don't think that God requires that we impoverish ourselves at other people's expense. I think that happens sometimes, and I think it's a good thing, and some people are incredibly good at sacrificial giving. But I don't think it's a requirement. I don't think we have to leave this room thinking like, I have to slash my budget in half and start giving all my money away. I don't think that's the requirement. We get to see the Macedonians doing that. And to me, an example of that would be sacrificial giving would be, you know what, I'm going to cut my grocery money in half this week so that that family can have groceries. Whereas when he's talking about a surplus and a deficit with the Corinthians, to me, that's more like your luxury money giving. So that would be like, I'm not going to go to the movies this month, you know, because these people need some money. So I feel like there's a room for both kinds. And I think we don't have to get too anxious or rigid about how we share our money and what kind of generosity we show to people around this community particularly. So all of those things can apply in our daily lives, but I think it's something really important to think about as we're building our endeavor here. Because one thing that I keep thinking about is like, one, how generous we've already been. We've already done a lot of things that have flowed naturally out of who we are as a group and out of needs that we see in Richfield. So some of the ways that we've done that is when we did the laundry detergent for family partnership, when we did the cold weather clothing drive for the middle school, when we did collected items for the food shelf at the high school. I feel like we did really helpful things, and I think we did them in really wise ways because we partnered with what was already there. We weren't trying to like reinvent the wheel or like make something up that wasn't already existing. We went where places already said like, hey, you guys can help over here. So we did. And I think that that's a really important thing. It makes me think of what Paul was talking about the Macedonians. Like, you already gave yourself to this work, you've already given yourself to God, and our generosity is naturally flowing out of that. And I think that that will be a helpful thing as we continue. I think it might also be helpful if we look for ways to receive generosity from the community, because we're a young church full of young people. And there are going to be ways that we need help and areas that we need assistance in. And I think, especially towards building mutuality within the community, I don't know where those things are going to exist, but I feel like as we build relationships with other churches, as we build relationships with other community organizations, if we can find ways to receive generosity, I think that's going to almost go further than the ways that we give. Because I actually was thinking of one of my parents' friends. She had a neighbor with, so like the friend, is my parents' age, and she had a young neighbor with like a young family, and they were having a hard time. And so this friend, my parents' friend, she was helping them out with stuff, like bringing them food once in a while, and like buying the kids clothes sometimes, and like doing all that kind of stuff. And so this woman comes to my parents' friend, and she just is like, hey, if you don't let me do something for you, like, you have to stop doing things for me. And because every time this woman would like offer to do something in return, the friend would turn her down and be like, no, I'm here for you. And so the woman explained to her, like, it's actually not fun to always be the recipient. Like, it's really only fun if you get to be the recipient too sometimes. And like, I totally agree with that. Like, it was great while I was in college that so many people helped me out. Like, my family took care of me in big ways. My friends took care of me in little and important ways. But like, it feels really good now that I have like a real job and I can like do that for people too. So yeah, so I think like as we're developing and as we're finding our place in Richfield, it will be a helpful thing if we can look for places to find surpluses that are here instead of only looking out for the deficits. I think that that will go a long way towards strengthening what we're doing and also adding felt value to what's already here. Yeah, I don't know that I need to say more. So if you guys want to stand up, we're going to pray, we'll have some singing, we're going to do communion as well. It'll be good. So, God, we thank you for the ways that you're generous with us, the ways that you make sure we have what we need more than we need. And I pray that you would help us to have that same kind of generosity with others. Not just generosity with our money, but generosity with our attitudes and our feelings, that we be generous when thinking of other people. I pray that as we continue to form who we are, God, that not only would you be pleased, but that you would be shown. We would like to be a body that reveals who you are to the community around us. And we would like to be a body that sees who you are in the community around us. God, we ask these things in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy
Spirit. Sing another song. To give unselfishly, to love the least of these. Jesus, I'm learning how to live with open hands. All these treasures that I own will never satisfy my soul. Jesus, I lay them at your throne with open hands. So I lift my hands open wide, let the whole world see how you loved, how you died, how you set me free, free at last. I surrender. All I am with obedience, So finally let go of my plans. These earthly kingdoms built of sand. Jesus, it's your cross, now I stand with open hands. And I lift my hands open wide, let the whole world see how you loved, how you died, how you set me free, free at last. I surrender all I am with obedience. So heavy for the crown you hung your head, your love. You took my place, you paid the price, oh Jesus, and now I give my life. And I lift my hands open wide, let the whole world see how you loved, how you died, how you set me free, free at last. I surrender all I am with obedience, with obedience.
So I can't think of any better way to wrap up a discussion of generosity and equality than by sharing communion. Because when we have communion, we're all equal and we all get to share in it. And not just with each other, with all the other churches, all the centuries of churches. It is a great time to meet. And yeah. So kind of the process that we have here is you'll come up the middle, you'll have some bread, you'll get some juice, and then you can go around the side and return to your seat. We also have gluten-free bread, so if that's a thing for you, feel free to partake. So, on the night on which our Lord was betrayed, he took the bread and he broke it. And he said, "This is my body given for you." And in the same way, he took the cup and he said, "This is my blood, the blood of the new covenant poured out for you." And as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, do it in remembrance of me. The table is set. You can come eat. Let's finish up with one more song. Let's all stand.
Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, we're found in the desert place, we're walk through the wilderness. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you poured out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name, when sun shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, when the road marked with suffering, and this pain we offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Give and take away. Give and take away. My heart will choose to say, oh, blessed be your name. God, you give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, oh, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, oh, blessed be your name. One time. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, oh, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name.
I'm going to borrow a benediction from Paul. Finally, brothers and sisters, rejoice, strive for full restoration, encourage one another, be of one mind, live in peace, and the God of love and peace be with all of you. Have a great week. Hopefully we'll see you Saturday if you're coming through Richfield, and for sure we'll see you next Sunday night.